I'd like to call the regular Charter Township Board meeting for the Charter Township of Chesterfield for Tuesday, February 8th to order at 7 p.m. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee DeMink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Berry is here.
Item 4, approval of agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
I will second that motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make one minor change, and that is that under presentation, we currently have nothing scheduled, but my understanding is that Trustee Vosberg would like to say a few things under presentation with relationship to item 9B.
Yes, so noted. Thank you. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Supervisor, also just a point of clarification with regard to the approval of the agenda. The board received some correspondence regarding agenda item 9A, and is that part of our regular agenda, or was there some intention by the treasurer? I was confused in the email. So does the regular agenda inclusive of regular agenda item 9A?
If there is a motion to remove 9A, we can do that at this point also.
Well, I would make the motion, but I think it would be out of line given that it was the treasurer's motion, so I would defer to her, but if she's not inclined, I would ask that it be removed.
Yes, I'd make the motion to remove 9A.
I will support that motion also. So we have a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item 9A and include under presentations Trustee Vosberg. Any other comments from board? Clerk Berry, would you call roll call?
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Item 5, presentations, Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. I would like to tonight recognize Brianna, Stefan, who is here with us tonight, and I'm going to call her up here in just a minute, but before I do, Brianna is a young woman who was born with a birth defect called Omphalocele, and it's a condition where part of the abdominal wall does not close properly, so some of the organs are in places there shouldn't be, especially on the outside of her body. And she went through many procedures to take care of that, and as you'll be able to see real soon, she's a very healthy, normal-looking young woman. In fact, she dances and is involved in many other activities. And I can remember when she was born 15 years ago, because I served with her grandfather on the Macomb County Board of Commissioners, so he kept us all informed about this. So this being her 15th year, she's been an advocate. I won't read the entire thing that we're going to approve it later, but we'll present that to you. In fact, why don't you come up now? And we have this presentation that we will give to you. And one of the things that Brianna has been doing over the years is she's been an advocate for awareness of this. And can you tell us some of the places you've been to talk about this?
Lansing in the Capitol.
Okay, and you with the Senate, I believe, and with the House of Representatives,
Yes.
right? And she's here tonight in Chesterfield Township. And January 31 is actual Awareness Day for Omphalocele, and we have acknowledged that, and we have named we have named the month of February Awareness Month here in Chesterfield. And one of the things that Brianna also did was write a book about this condition, and it's something that's being used by many people to explain to other family members about it, or if they have people who know or have the same condition, they get one of these books to her and to the whoever the patient might be, plus any other interesting stories about that you want to tell?
Well, it's changed a lot of people's perspective because when somebody finds out that they have no Omphalocele, they're really scared because it seems like a really scary word. But with the book, they can work through it with families, and it helps a lot of different people.
Great, thank you very much. And I will, I'm going to keep the book because you gave that to me, and I will hand you this proclamation. You can take that with you, and it will make it official in a few minutes. All right, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Trustee Osberg. Any further, Trustee Osberg?
That's it.
Thank you. Item 6, department reports. Are there any department reports? Seeing none, department reports from the board. Clerk Barry? I'm sorry, Trustee Joe Demink.
I have one from Leisure Services. It may be cold outside, but start thinking baseball before the sun comes out to avoid missing out on being part of this spring's leagues. Teams are now forming for boys and girls ages 5 to 15. Registration accepted in person or online at parks.chesterfieldtownship.org or contact Leisure Services Department. Also now hiring, looking for an unforgettable seasonal job. Join us at the Parks and Recs or be instrumental in helping us implement our ever-popular summer day camp program. Earn up to $18 per hour depending on position and qualifications. And for more information, apply at the Township website, chesterfieldtownship.org, and positions available until filled. Initial interviews taking place the week of March 7th. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Treasurer Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. According to Michigan compiled law 41.77, the township treasurer must appoint a deputy. In accordance with that state law, I've appointed former Macomb Township treasurer Karen Goodhue. Karen served in Macomb Township for 13 years as first the deputy treasurer and eventually the treasurer. There was a lengthy discussion on the deputy's positions that took place at the January 11th board meeting that revealed need for clarity on a few items. I serve to just simply inform and educate to the best of my ability. The first item that was discussed is if time could lapse between appointments. In a call that I made both after that meeting to the Michigan Township Association and the Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association, both organizations interpreted the word shall appoint in the state statute to mean that all reasonable efforts should be made to have an appointed deputy. The appointment of Karen Goodhue prevented any lapse of time between those appointments. As also seen in the minutes from 5/1/2017, when our clerk acknowledged the service of her former deputy and appointed her current deputy. The second item I would like to bring some clarity to is regarding check signing. I have passed to each board member some documentation, supporting documentation. On the second page of that documentation, there's something called titled Hello MTA. The first question on that document asks whose signature is required on a township check. The answer following says, the township treasurer or deputy treasurer's signature is required by law to make a check a negotiable instrument that orders a payment to be made. Township laws and the Michigan Department of Treasury require the clerk or deputy clerk's signature as confirmation that either the board has already authorized payment by voting to approve it, or the payment is being issued according to the board's adopted post-audit policy. The State Accounting Procedures Manual states that 2 signatures are required on each check, and dual signatures are required for all checking accounts except the separate tax collection account. So dual signatures must be the clerk or the deputy clerk and the treasurer or the deputy treasurer. I want to thank you for allowing me to read that to you. And also want to remind you that taxes are due February 14th, and to enjoy a happy Valentine's Day with that good news. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Elliott. Clerk Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. A couple of items. First, from the Elections Department. The Chesterfield Elections Department has always sought ways to increase our efficiency and our professionalism in our office in terms of how we manage elections. And we've been recognized as one of the very high-level clerk's offices. We at one time had 3 certified municipal clerks. We now have 2 still, but we have a 3rd one that is currently being trained, and that's very unusual. Usually, in some offices, not even the clerk is certified. It's not required by Michigan state law. It's required to be an election administrator, but certified municipal clerk designation is not required, is actually an additional step. And our office, 2 people in our office, myself and Deputy Clerk Nyza, have both taken that additional step. At this point, we are now looking at the Election Assistance Commission to employ further best practices and standards with regards to handling elections, to, again, refine even further our internal processes as well as your experience on Election Day, because at the end of the day, our goal is to make Election Day run smoothly and deliver reliable, quickly results for the public, so that the public trust and confidence is rebuilt. And we've always maintained that, but recently I was very disturbed to read a recent poll that found that 37% of people still do not, or for some reason do not have confidence in our electoral system. So we in our office are taking additional steps to try to help restore that. We believe that that is critically important, and is incumbent upon local clerks to do that, since we are the election administrators here in Chesterfield. So more to come on that, and we'll give specifics in terms of the steps that we're taking, but we are actually taking that additional step here. And that is something that we've decided to do to elevate our level of service for our voters and just bolster confidence in the electoral system. So additionally, out of the clerk's office, I did receive communication this week that I did forward on to the board, and just wanted everyone to be aware, if you haven't seen it in your emails. The clerk's office received this last week communications from an organization that was making us aware that there may be a ballot initiative referendum coming to Chesterfield. We had heard rumblings of this, but we did receive confirmation in an email, and so I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that, that an ordinance and a referendum to allow for commercial cannabis in Chesterfield Township may be presented to us in the coming months. I would hope that the board would read that communication as well as the corresponding ordinance. They did send a sample ordinance of what they plan to initiate or incorporate into their referendum, and I find that it was very concerning to me, and I want to make sure the board was aware of that, so I did pass it on to all of the board members exactly as it was received by the clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Mayor. Any further comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Just wanted to advise the board, as the representative on the sustainability study with Selfridge last week, on the Tuesday and Thursday, I believe the 1st and the 3rd, there was a scoping meeting concerning possible bed down of the F-35. As we discussed and I shared with the board at previous meetings, and General Mammon reported during his presentation that the Air Force Base in Ebbing, Arkansas has been identified as the site for the bed down of the F-35 training program. Specifically, this particular bed down involves the Royal Air Force of Singapore and their purchase of F-16s and F-35s, utilizing a U.S. base as the training site. Part of the bed down procedure requires what the military refers to as an EIS, and during that EIS process, there's an opportunity for public questions and input. So there were 2 scoping meetings as part of this process. The first one, I believe, was on Tuesday of last week, and the second one was on Thursday. There were hundreds of people that participated in this, both in Michigan and in Arkansas. Best I can tell, each camp was making their pitch for why they felt that the base was better, here or there, and then they would provide rationale for that. I did follow up that meeting because it was General Mamon's belief, and I think he said during the meeting, that he had never seen the Department of Defense move from their primary site to the alternate site. And there was a representative here from Senator Peters' office who I spoke to after the meeting who said that the likelihood of the F-35 with this particular bed down opportunity was less than 5%. But one of the takeaways from this scoping meeting involved an assessment of both military installations and things that needed to occur to accommodate the F-35. A couple of those things for the Selfridge base involved the construction of simulators for the F-35, rather large structures, 50,000 square feet, possible extension of runway, increased APZs. And so I followed up with General Momon to talk with him about the base's intention of trying to prepare itself, even though there's an unlikely chance of this bed down coming. What will the base do? Will the base be looking to prepare Selfridge as if it was a contender and could receive? This is a very long process. The final decision will not be made until the summer of, I believe, 2023, and the Royal Singapore Air Force personnel will not be here in the States undertaking the training until 2024. So still a lot of unanswered questions, and I raised some of those and was grateful and thanked General Momon for coming in and helping to clarify that. So I will notify the board once I've had an opportunity to sit down with General Momon and talk about what the ongoing plans at the base are for possible preparation for the F-35. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Joseph. Trustee Henning? Item 7, consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda items are permitted. 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of January 25th, 2022. 7B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Support. Treasurer Elliott. Discussion from the board. No comments from the board. Comments from the public.
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. On the bill run, under 101-265-931.001, we've got Aztec Services for the municipal building in there for $6,797. We also have a charge from Aztec for the DPW building. So, and that charge there is $2,600 a month. So when you add those two charges, we're looking at $9,397 a month times 12. So we end up paying $112,764 for cleaning services here in the township for the municipal building and a small DPW building. That $112,764 doesn't include the supplies that we pay for. So if you add another about $10,000 in supplies, now we're roughly at about $122,000 to clean two buildings. I've said it before, and I will continuously say that. That is a waste of taxpayers' money. We can bring two people in here and pay anywhere from $15 to $20 an hour and save over half of what we're paying here. So I would like to see if we can get out of this contract. And if we can bring in, Aztec is only in here 4 nights a week, in 4 hours a night, and typically I see one person, but I've been told that they run with 2 people, but I've always just seen one person in the building. So if we can look at that and try to cut that cost down, I would appreciate it. That would be a huge savings, considering that, we're at a negative $3.5 million budget deficit to begin with. So every penny and every dollar counts. And I notice our costs are like astronomical too in here with Ultima, between the plowing and the salting. On our last bill run, we had over 13,000, and in this bill run here, it's thousands of dollars between salting and plowing. So if maybe the supervisor could give an explanation on, I was under the understanding our day crew was going to take care of the plowing and salting, and Ultima was only going to come in at night. So if I can get some clarification on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? No further comments from the public. I have a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve the consent agenda as read. Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye. Trustee
Joseph. Aye. Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 8A, public hearings.
Item 8A is to conduct a public hearing to hear comments concerning the allocation of 2022 Community Development Block Grant as required by the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended.
Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to open the public hearing at 8:24. 27. 7:27. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is open. For the public hearing individuals that are here, if you want to step to the podium, state your name and your group affiliation, and we'd love to hear from you. You may approach, yes.
Good evening. My name is Dory Vasquez-Nolan. I'm the Executive Director of Care House, the Macomb County Child Advocacy Center. Our main office is located in Mount Clemens, and we also have a satellite office located in the city of Warren. Care House is the only agency in Macomb County that offers a comprehensive response for child victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, or for children that may have been a witness to a violent act, as well as their non-offending family members. Our goals are to minimize the trauma that is typically associated with a child abuse investigation and to assist the child victim and their family through the road to healing. Care House is an accredited member of the National Children's Alliance and one of over 800 in the United States. We collaborate with all law enforcement jurisdictions in Macomb County, as well as the FBI, Homeland Security, and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, as well as Children's Protective Services, the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, and medical and mental health professionals. Almost 3 children in every Michigan classroom, and over 20,000 of all of the children here in Macomb County today are living with the trauma of sexual abuse. We know that these numbers are surely much higher than our best estimates because most children never tell. Sadly, living with sexual abuse is a reality for children of every race, gender, and economic status. And these kids could be your kids, your neighbor's kids, or your kids' friends. And one may have even been you or me. Over 800 child victims of sexual and physical abuse from every community in Macomb County start their journey at Care House every year. Care House services include the coordination of forensic interviews, crisis counseling, trauma-focused therapy sessions, parent and child support groups, trauma-focused therapy sessions, family advocacy, access to forensic medical examinations, referrals to other needed community services, and as the designated counsel in Macomb County for the Michigan Children's Trust Fund, Care House offers child abuse education, child abuse prevention, I should say, education and training to professionals and to the community at large. Families are never charged for any of the services that they receive from Care House. We see families as long as they need us. And we're very proud to report that according to our most recent financial audit, 88 cents of every dollar that comes to Care House is devoted specifically to our programs serving children and families. Since we opened in 1996, we've conducted over 9,400 forensic interviews, and 446 of those children resided in Chesterfield Township. In 2019, we provided 757 forensic interviews with 33 children from Chesterfield. In 2020, because of COVID, our numbers were down. We conducted 664 forensic interviews, including 32 Chesterfield Township residents. And last year, in 2021, we conducted 727 forensic interviews with 23 children being Chesterfield residents. So far, as of today in 2022, we have provided forensic interviews for 3 Chesterfield children already. And additionally, we do provide ongoing therapy and advocacy services for several Chesterfield Township families every year. The pandemic continues to be a very challenging time for Care House and for the families that we serve. We have begun family pantries at both of our locations that are very well received. We provide everything from food staples, PPEs and hand sanitizers, cleaning items, diapers, school supplies, games and toys, and we also assisted 16 families over the Christmas season, serving over 63 individuals, making their season a little brighter. We depend on the community to provide a safe place for child victims and to be their voice. We're very grateful for the $8,400 that we received in Cdbg funding from Chesterfield Township last year, which supported services for 14 Chesterfield children. This year, we respectfully request consideration in the amount of $10,200 to support services for 17 qualifying child victims and their families that would be residents in Chesterfield Township. But of course, we'd be happy for any amount that you'd be able to allocate. We invite you to visit our website at www.mccarehouse.org. Follow us on Facebook. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the statistics that I provided or any of our services. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Trustee Joseph, you.
I had a brief question and a comment. For those who, and I know the number of board members are familiar with the work that's done at Care House, but I think it would be helpful for the public to know that when a child discloses sexual abuse in an environment, say in a school setting, they may disclose to a teacher or to a counselor, who then makes a call to maybe protective services, who then interviews the child, historically, would then interview the child. Perhaps a law enforcement referral is made, and then a law enforcement officer would interview the child. Then the child could potentially go to the hospital, where the emergency room doctor would ask questions about the child, a nurse or hospital staff. And from my work in Children's Protective Services in a past life, we got to understand that process, and we heard from children who, as adults, described the retelling of the most traumatic event in their life as being worse than the original abuse that was perpetrated upon them. And so Care House came into existence with the sole mission of reducing the trauma in an already traumatized and broken family. And what the work that's done in your organization is to put prosecutors, law enforcement officers, protective service investigators in a room separate from the child, and a forensic interview is conducted by a skilled clinician who can illuminate the process for all parties involved, for prosecution, for understanding in terms of counseling, and it's done in a minimized way to reduce the impact on the trauma, on the child. And having been part of those interviews, they are some of the most powerful things I've ever experienced, and you do them with such professionalism, and even though it's something that could potentially become routine, the amount of care and concern and just decency that's shown to these families is really very, very powerful. And I would caution board members, when you look at, unfortunately, what we have to do when we analyze what our return on investment is, and we look at how many Chesterfield, because that's what we are elected to represent, I would ask our board to take note that the forensic interviews are just the tip of the spear when it comes to the services that are afforded these families. So a child who participates in a forensic interview also now brings the entire family, who is, in many instances, in need of vast amounts of services. Some of those services are directly provided by CareHouse, and others, CareHouse acts as a conduit to professionals who can assist the family, not just for a static moment during the interview, but sometimes months and even years post event, and these services are continually provided. So when we see in a chart that in 2021, 23 Chesterfield individuals participated in a forensic interview, the number of impacted Chesterfield families and individuals within that family are, multiples in that number. The other thing that I again cannot share with you enough, Dory, is your commitment as a administrator in that facility, the way you look out for the kids that come into your building and your staff. You incorporate self-care and make sure that your clinicians are always at their best and able to be there for the kids. You're a fantastic leader, and how you're able to do that at nearly 90% return on the donors is beyond me. But you do phenomenal work. I know that you have to make the circuit in different communities and tell CareHouse's story, but you look at it as an opportunity to bring the resources that you need to protect these vulnerable kids and families. And so I really do appreciate you being here. And as I always do, I would ask you to do some selfless plugging and talk about whatever fundraisers that you may have, because it's not just the block grants that you rely on, but also independent fundraising events. And maybe you could share with the board and residents if you have any events currently planned in 2022.
Thank you. And I'm going to need you to come to the rest of the public hearings with me. Off the top of my head, I really would invite everyone to like our Facebook page, because we do keep current with our events. We have a celebrity bartending event coming up in Mount Clemens at O'Halloran's on Thursday, April 14th. And we have a golf outing in August at Gowney. I think it's on a Monday. I think it's the 15th. And our largest annual fundraiser, Christmas for Kids, will be at Cherry Creek on Thursday, December 1st. And that's about all that we have going on. But they're all great events. You can see photos of them on our website, on our Facebook page. Can always reach out to me through email, via our website, or call us. We'd love to have anybody come by for a tour sometime, learn about what we do, how you could help us by volunteering. And I thank you for your kind words.
You're a tremendous asset to our community, and your staff is really something special. So I'll be advocating for the full amount, and I appreciate you more than you know. So thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Bosworth.
Thank you. Thank you, Dory, for being here. And you offered a tour, and I years ago did take a tour, and what I was most impressed with was the facility and just the warm and just the normalness of the place and the rooms where the children would be interviewed and whatever. And that helped me to know it was not at all like a trauma center type of situation, because they have been through enough. So I appreciate that. And we have a new public safety director, so not from Macomb County, so maybe he can become more aware of you now, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Treasurer Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Is there, do you accept donations there, or is there an avenue for, I know you mentioned some donations. Could you just give us a little more detail on that?
Sure. Are you
That'd be great.
speaking of, like, for the pantry or monetary or any?
Yeah, well, I think monetary,
Yeah.
both.
So we have a donate button on our website. You can also access it through our Facebook page. And now, because of those family pantries, we have an Amazon wish list that have the most common items that we hear families need, like snacks for kids, juice boxes. One thing that's really been popular are waterproof mattress pads, because a lot of times kids in trauma start wetting the bed, and sometimes parents don't have the money to, keep replacing that kind of stuff, or they never had. So we have a supply of waterproof mattress pads now. But yeah, we also have, as Commissioner Joseph, or Trustee Joseph mentioned, an amazing staff, including Ajisha, who is our family advocate and crisis counselor, who comes up with the coolest ideas, including a new drive that she's starting for the summer with either backpack donations or beach bag donations, and an array of sensory and art supplies that we want to send kids home with when they're home for the summer, so that they can work on developing coping skills and deal with maybe the trauma that they're still processing with some of these items. So all of those are being added to the Amazon wish list too. Thank you.
Next presenter? Presenters?
Good evening. I am Jessica, a shelter intern for Turning Point. I am here as a representative for our shelter program tonight to request $7,500 in community block grant fund money for Chesterfield to assist in the provision of shelter services for survivors and their families of domestic and sexual violence from Chesterfield. Turning Point has been a part of the community for 40 years. We are a domestic sexual violence support organization inside of Macomb County. Turning Point Shelter provides emergency shelter services to Chesterfield residents fleeing violence in their homes. In fiscal year 2021, Turning Point provided 785 shelter beds a night to 6 Chesterfield survivors, including 3 children. We provided shelter, basic needs, including clothing, diapers, formula, and toiletries, meals, crisis intervention, case management, children's support services and advocacy, program advocacy, and support groups. In addition to shelter, Turning Point provided the following services to Chesterfield residents. 18 people received counseling and advocacy services. 6 Chesterfield survivors received forensic nurse exams following sexual assault. 6 Chesterfield survivors received crisis intervention, information, and referral from our first response team following an assault. Even during COVID, we are offering a comprehensive array of services which are all free, including 24/7 hotline, emergency shelter, home-based community and housing advocacy, individual and group counseling, assistance with filing personal protection orders, forensic nurse exams to survivors of sexual assault, legal advocacy, personal protection orders, prevention education, and Turning Point has a secondhand rose store to assist survivors with basic needs free of cost. Instead of asking for funding support, I would rather be here to inform you that there is no longer violence within the homes of residents in Chesterfield, Macomb County. Unfortunately, Turning Point's 24-hour crisis line and the fact that our shelter is full most of the time demonstrates daily that family violence continues, contributes to homelessness, and that our services are greatly needed. Turning Point's commitment to end domestic and sexual violence cannot happen without the support of our community. Please help us to maintain this crucial and viable service by supporting the continuation of grant funding support. If awarded the $7,500 requested of Chesterfield, Turning Point will be able to provide approximately 247 nights of shelter to those who identify themselves as Chesterfield residents. Thank you for the opportunity to address this council and for your consideration in providing part of the solution for a community response to domestic and sexual violence. Anyone have any questions?
No questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, man, there are questions. Trustee Vosper.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And you've already submitted this through the county, correct?
To my understanding, Karen Gaster, she did that.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you very much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome. Thanks.
all of the work you do.
Treasurer Elliott.
My question would be the same as the last presenter. You also have accept donations. If you could tell us a little bit about that as well, please.
Yes, so we accept donations for our children, our survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. It comes through our secondhand roles department. Our donation centers is Monday through Thursday from 9 to 1. And we accept books, children clothing, toys, as well as clothing for survivors, pots and pans, household items. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Fred.
Oh, Trustee Domingue, I'm sorry.
Just
More
Turning
questions, ma'am?
Point- No, I don't have a question. It's Turning Point's an excellent donation center. I work with the nurses at scene quite often, as I'm sure Trustee Joseph does in his profession, and they do a great job, so whatever we can help you out with, I will make my notations known to the supervisor. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Conti, and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator at Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers. With the number of older adults in Macomb County rapidly increasing, the need for support services due to frailties of age, chronic health conditions, or disabilities is growing dramatically and will continue to do so well into the future. For 29 years, our organization has been providing free basic assistance to hundreds of frail, older, and physically challenged adults, helping them remain safely in their homes with the help of over 200 volunteers. Such assistance has been helping older and disabled adults with transportation, chores, respite breaks, errands, and loneliness. These opportunities provide fulfilling experiences for those who wish to volunteer, as well as support for those in need. The Cdbg Safe at Home project of IVC is part of our larger chore and repair program for older and disabled adults. The project was developed to provide additional chore and repair services in the communities that allocate funding for this purpose. The project allows us to assist low to moderate income seniors and physically challenged adults with indoor and outdoor chores, minor home repairs, and routine housekeeping. We identify individuals who cannot do these tasks on their own and with limited resources, and prioritize those with the greatest need. We are requesting the Cdbg funds to increase the number of low-income citizens we can reach to grow our program, as well as coordinate the volunteers who do those services. In 2021, even during the pandemic, we were able to serve almost 450 clients, with almost 150 being served through our Safe at Home program. While we have been able to support a good number of residents of Chesterfield over the years, we would love to expand our support, including the Safe at Home project, further into the community. In the past, we were able to complete more tasks in Chesterfield the year we received the Cdbg funding than most of the years where we received none, and so we are confident there's a direct correlation. We hope for continued funding for the 2022-2023 program year so that we can continue to build momentum and offer this service to more of those in need in the future. The appreciation for the assistance is heartwarming from seniors such as a woman who we helped to install a new toilet when she didn't have one that functioned in her home, and another senior who we helped declutter her home and take donations to the Salvation Army and St. Vincent de Paul. Other examples of help through this project may be replacing locks, washing windows, and installing smoke alarms. With the Cdbg funding, this project can grow and assistance can be granted to a variety of lower-income Chesterfield senior citizens and disabled adults. Thank you to the board and everyone here tonight for your consideration. Any dollar amount granted is greatly appreciated in our program, and we thank you for your funds you granted to us in the past as we hope to continue to partner with you going forward. If you know of any seniors who might utilize our service and could use some assistance, please let us know by calling our office directly or visiting www.ivcinfo.org. And I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next presenter.
Hello, my name is Christina, and I'm the Finance Director at Maggie's Wigs for Kids Michigan. I want to thank the Chesterfield Board of Trustees for your past support of our program that provides custom-fitted wigs and support services to Michigan children in need at no charge. You have all received a packet with more information along with our grant request. Founded in 2003, we have helped over 5,000 children, and the need is great. When these kids come in, they're often angry, and they won't even look up at you because they're so embarrassed about their hair loss. However, when they receive a wig, that all changes. They feel more confident in their appearance, and they return to school and other activities with their friends and family. With the demand for our services increasing, we are excited to announce that we have moved into our new wellness center in June of 2020. The center allows our charity to double the amount of children we currently serve and expand programming to include a nutrition and fitness center to address nutritional needs and learn the importance of nutrition, oncology chair massages to promote health and well-being, nail services for when nails become brittle or discolored or break, facial and skin care to help with changes within the skin during treatments, an enchanted tea room where families can enjoy refreshments and snacks, and in the evening, this room can be opened up and reserved for end-of-chemo parties and life celebrations. And just last year, we opened up a raised therapy garden where the families can have a safe, socially distanced place to grow vegetables and herbs they can cook and enjoy in healthy meal planning classes. Due to the children's health challenges, especially during COVID, they often cannot be around large groups of people, which limits family activities. Our facility is a controlled environment where they are safe to socialize without being exposed to the masses. And every room is sanitized after each use. All of these programs are available to the children right in your area. Over the last few years, we have helped about 16 children from your community. And this year, we are asking for $1,000 for a child in the coming year to support the cost of their wig. We keep our requests conservative based on the amount of children we have seen in previous years and income levels. Maggie's Wigs for Kids of Michigan is fortunate to have the Platinum Level Award for our commitment to financial transparency through GuideStar, a charity watchdog for nonprofits. And less than half of 1% of nonprofits receive this recognition, and we are humbled to receive this recognition for the past 7 years. So you can rest assured, know that your funds go directly to the child that we serve in your community. We do ask that if you ever know of a child in need of our services, please refer them to us. We help everyone, we charge nothing, and we turn no one away. You're welcome to share the folder I gave you with your family, friends, local schools, and churches in your community. We can be contacted at 586-524-4928 or at www.wigsforkids.org with the number 4. And when this pandemic is behind us, we welcome you to stop by our wellness center, take a tour so you can see firsthand the difference that our program makes in the life of a child. On behalf of the kids, I thank you for your consideration and support. Are there any questions?
Trustee Joseph.
No questions, just a comment. If you could please extend to Ms. Varney our sincere appreciation for her work. She's another individual that is just truly incredible. I had the opportunity to spend some time with her We were the guest of then Senator Lucido for the governor's State of the State address, and listening to her talk about that center in St. Clair Shores, it is her life's work, and she is a truly selfless giver. And the amount of money that it costs to put together a quality item to give to a child who's really in a desperate situation, the lack of financial sort of compensation for that is never imposed on the family. So $1,000, you know, it's just incredible what you do there. And it's another top-notch, first-class organization that spends every penny extremely wisely. So thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Domingue.
Also, your organization does a great job. My full-time employer, we do the no shave in November, so
Yes.
175-man department we had last year, and we each kicked in $50, so we made a good donation, and I will definitely advise the supervisor my feelings that this is a great organization for to donate some grant money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments? Thank you very much. Just my closing comments to all four of you presenters. You have my complete dedication, and anything that we can funnel your way for the services that you provide, you have my individual commitment, and I hope to see you back here in the coming months. You are truly angels for what you do.
Mr. Supervisor, I wasn't sure on the format tonight. The presenters that came forward, did they indicate prior to the board meeting that they wanted to speak, and are there no additional presenters from the other agencies?
There were none that I saw.
If I could just share with the board quickly an applicant on this grant is McRest, and I know that they don't have somebody here today, but I wanted you to be aware of a incident that occurred just before Christmas involving our public safety department, specifically Colby Miller and his team over at MedStar. Colby contacted me just before Christmas and indicated that they had contributions within MedStar, and they had adopted a number of families. They had provided for all the families on their list and still had in excess of $3,000 of Meijer gift cards that he was hoping to get to needy families. I contacted Miss Fiddler, April Fiddler, who is the CEO of McRest, and asked her how they were doing in preparation for the holiday. They were at their wits' end because they too had exhausted all the families that they had in the shelter, and on Christmas Eve were advised that 3 additional families were coming into the McRest system, and they had no Christmas. Meijer gift cards were generous, but you can't give a kid a gift card and they're homeless and they have no transportation. So I spent Christmas Eve morning with some MedStar staff in the lines at Meijer, and we were able to get together with the McRest people sizes for all of the family members involved with that homelessness, and we delivered to them and spent better part of the afternoon sectioning them off to make sure that every kid had the gloves and shirts and toys that they had on their list. And you know, you just don't think about the amount of people that are out there contributing to these organizations, but McRest had a lot of staff on hand that they rallied at the last minute to provide these things. And we sometimes go and take things for granted, but there are people here who are with us in various charities and organizations that just do an incredible amount of work with no recognition. It's because it's in their heart and their DNA, and we saw that in the presenters today. McRest is another one of those organizations, and really grateful to be in a community where we have these kind of people who are just out there advocating for their fellow human being. And so it was a great night, and I thank all the presenters who came in tonight and shared their organization's mission. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Joseph. That being said, any further comments from?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd make a motion to close the public hearing at 7:55.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Vosberg, or Trustee Domingue, to close the public hearing. Clerk Berry, call roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Thank you very much to all the presenters that spoke. If you want, there'll be the results, I'm not sure what date the awards are given. We'll give you notice. Thank you. Item 9B, Clerk Barry.
Item 9B is to adopt proclamation number 2022-02 to recognize February as Omphalocele Awareness Month.
Do I have a motion to approve the proclamation
So moved.
Support.
supported by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Treasurer Elliott?
Could I just,
Trustee Vosberg, please.
thank you. And thank you to the board for allowing the presentation to be made earlier. Brianna takes her education very seriously. She had homework to do tonight, and so she wouldn't have to wait another hour. We thank you that we could do this sooner.
Thank you. Clerk Barry.
Mr. Supervisor, once comments are completed, I will read the proclamation into the record.
Trustee Joseph?
I just had a quick question for Trustee Vosberg. I know you didn't elaborate, and this girl touched your heart. You've known her for some time, as you indicated, birth. Who did you serve with? And I wanted to ask her, and I didn't want to put her on the spot. Is this a condition that she will battle for her life, or is there treatment, and now she is, sort of, I don't want to say cured, but is this something that she will struggle with forever, or is there treatment early? And I was wondering if you had any of that information. I guess I could ask you offline too, but it was a very, it was a pretty compelling kid that came forward, and a real sweet girl. So I didn't want to put her on the spot, but just curious what you could share.
It's my understanding that it's a condition that is treated when they're young, and there's some growing issues, but once they, I think she's done with any kind of treatment, and other than perhaps some scars, no one would ever know that she had had to overcome that. It was Commissioner Ranger.
Oh, outstanding.
Clerk Barry, please.
Proclamation to recognize February as Omphalocele Awareness Month. Whereas omphalocele is a birth defect that occurs early in pregnancy in which the abdominal wall does not close properly and some or most of the abdominal organs protrude on the outside of the fetus's body through the umbilical cord. And whereas it is estimated that a small omphalocele occurs in about 1 out of every 5,000 pregnancies, and a large or giant omphalocele occurs in about 1 out of every 10,000 pregnancies. And whereas an omphalocele may be isolated or may be associated with other defects or chromosomal abnormalities, and whereas despite the challenges a baby born with an omphalocele may face, many survive to go on to live happy, healthy lives. And whereas Mothers of Omphalocele is a group of parents from around the world that was created to provide hope, support, and information to families with babies diagnosed with this condition, and whereas Brianna Steffen was born with omphalocele and has been the Michigan Awareness Ambassador for the last 6 years since she was 9 years old. Now, therefore, on this 8th day of February 2022, on behalf of the Chartered Township of Chesterfield, the Township Board of Trustees does hereby proclaim the month of February as Omphalocele Awareness Month in Chesterfield Township.
Thank you, Clerk Barry. Any comments from the public? Seeing no comments from the public, I'll bring it back to the board. I have a motion by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve the proclamation for 2022 as read by Clerk Barry. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 9C.
Item 9C is to consider the Planning Commission recommendation to amend the Township's zoning ordinance, Section 5.39, off-street parking, vehicle stacking, and loading requirements, and adopt ordinance number 195.
Do I have a motion to approve item 9C?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by trustee Domingue, supported by clerk Barry. Director Palin.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This ordinance amendment in front of you deals with our parking standards, minimum parking space requirements for uses, shared parking, land banking of parking, electrical vehicle parking, bicycle parking. This ordinance has been in the works for a while, been being studied for a while. It's a national trend that parking demands are going down. If you remember a couple years ago, before Home Goods was built, they did a parking study over there. They did their study on Black Friday at peak times, and if you went through there, it's not even close to being full with online shopping. There's just less need. So that was the main focus of that, and then also we added standards for shared parking and land banking. We previously allowed them, but our ordinance was, I would say, discretionary, so now we have some clear standards and requirements that are needed in order to do land banking and shared parking. Then also giving the option and requirements for electrical vehicle parking, which is, as I said, optional, but does count towards the parking space minimum, as well as requirements for bicycle parking for new construction. With that, I can answer any questions.
Any comments from the board? No comments from the board. Any comments from the public? I have a motion by trustee Domingue, supported by clerk Barry, to approve item 9C as presented. Clerk Barry.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9D.
Item 9D is to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the rezoning request for parcel number 09-11-300-002 from R1A, one family residential, to R1B, one family residential.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion by trustee Vosberg, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve item 9D. Director Palin.
Thank you. This application here is the property north side of 24 Mile Road next to Heatherwood subdivision. The applicant is requesting R1B, which is a density consistent with the master plan and the surrounding developments. This one's pretty straightforward. When you look at the zonings of the surrounding developments, there's a couple that are zoned R1A, but at the time they were done under a PUD, and the other one was old ordinance that we no longer have. So even though they are zoned R1A, they are consistent with the R1B as far as the density goes. So the Planning Commission did find it to be consistent with the master plan and are recommending approval.
Any comments from the board?
Just a quick
Trustee
question.
Joseph, please.
In terms of density, are we going to a more dense footprint?
That's correct. So the R1A, which it's currently zoned, the minimum lot size for that is 90 by, I believe it's 90 by 150. And then the R1B is 75 by 135. 135 or I believe it's 135, yeah.
Could you elaborate on how the increase in density is consistent with the master plan in this area?
Yeah, so the way the master plan does it, it doesn't do it by specific density. It gives a range so that the density that is called out in the master plan, which is, so the future land use map designates this area as medium density single family residential with a density range of 1.4 to 2.5 units per acre. So in that range is consistent with the R1B. It is also consistent with the R1A, but also consistent with R1B.
I guess for me, the distinction here is that it permits a 70-foot lot versus a 95, and when you talk about multiple units, you're really talking about potential for just a more dense footprint, and it seems to be, from at least the feedback I get from residents, the exact opposite of what they would like to see. We're putting more lots in tighter spaces, and then demands on infrastructure from everything from sanitary sewer to electrical grid space to traffic gets compromised, and we say consistent with the master plan, but I think that I was part of the master plan, Trustee Demink, you were part of it, and then finished it. That's how long it took to get the master plan reconstructed, but through all of the public hearings with the process, what was constant was public feedback that said, the greater the density, the greater the stress on all of the things I mentioned with regard to infrastructure. So loosely consistent with the master plan and specifically consistent with R1A and R1B are two different things. And I can't support this, and I'm curious if this issue was discussed and if Trustee Demink had any additional feedback.
There was a public hearing on this, if I recall correct, Jonathan, and there was no opposition. I think there was one question. It was the gentleman who owned the house there, right? Wasn't it? Correct my memory?
I was actually not at that meeting, but I did read through the minutes, and I believe that is correct. There was
only
comment.
one gentleman, and he had the house, is it to the right of that picture, Jonathan? Is that where I'm looking at? Because you got Great Oaks, and then you got the parcel of land to the right, and I think there was only one gentleman. He had questioned, but he wasn't that opposed to it, David, and there was a public hearing on it.
No, I appreciate that, and I know, having sat through some of the public hearings, I know, and I think you would agree, sometimes the public hearing, and it's not our job to divine the intent of the residents and so forth. That's why we have public hearings. But in terms of being able to come to a planning commission meeting and being aware that, we find these things out when we go out into the community and we hear people talking about the inability to traverse 23-mile road at peak travel times and what's going on in our community. And then we look at multiple decisions that we make to improve, to approve a more dense footprint. And we do these in small subdivisions, and I'm sensitive to a developer's need to turn a profit, but we got to balance that. And I don't know that, just a poorly attended public hearing in the middle of a pandemic where one person asked about traffic is a fair assessment of what we know to be a consistent problem with infrastructure and stress on our community. So I appreciate your feedback, though.
Dave, there was a good amount of people there. And if I recall, Jonathan, correct me, isn't there some wetlands on the back corner of that property too?
There is, yeah, you can kind of see it from the aerial there.
There used to be a pond out in the back. Sure.
Yeah, you can kind of see where it wraps around, so there's...
The wetlands, is it your position, they were presenting hardship with, adequate development of the property as part of their presentation?
And like I say, this was several meetings ago, but I remember there was just like one little corner in the back where I think it's a wetland because there's a old pond back in there from the days. You would know more.
For this rezoning, as with any rezoning that comes in front of you, unless it's a conditional rezoning, we didn't consider a site plan. We're not looking at wetlands at this point. We're just looking at the district and the standards of that district.
Sure. And
whether they find that acceptable or not. So anything to do with the wetlands, whether they would look to mitigate them, whether they were regulated, whether they would, I think if they were looking for something else, they'd probably come in. We've seen it recently in the last couple of years with 55-foot lots where they preserve some land. But the 75-foot lots is the majority of the subdivisions in the township. There's a few that are smaller than that, and there's a few that are larger than that, but the vast majority would be the 75-footers.
Thank you.
And Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, Trustee Joseph brought up a couple interesting points here. I know a few months ago we had that senior citizen project that was initially talked about, a 24-mile road in Gratiot, and one of the objections, or seemed to be the universal objections to it, is there so much concentration of traffic would occur out of that. And I'm just wondering, increasing these units, and you've got a very limited footprint of streets there, I can't see how, you can throw any more, or the county's gonna put any more roads in there. I just really question, also, I really question putting that kind of increase as far as dwellings in there. Just one vote, but just that's my opinion. Thank you.
Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public? No comments from the public. I have a motion by Trustee Vosberg, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve item 9D. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9E.
Item 9E is to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the rezoning request for parcel number 09-16-300-008 from RM3 multifamily residential to C3 general commercial.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Deming,
Support?
supported by Trustee Joseph.
Yes.
Director Palin.
Thank you again. This one here, the applicant is the property owner. They do have a purchaser in mind, but as I stated on the last, last agenda item, we're not considering a site plan at this point. We're considering any use that would be allowed in the district, which they are requesting C3 from the RM3 multifamily district. This one here, if you look at the master plan, there is this parcel is designated as multifamily in the master plan, but it does state in the text that the master plan map is not intended to be parcel specific. It's intended to be the general area, and the parcel directly adjacent is C3. And when the Planning Commission discussed that, they found that the boundary for that would be more appropriate at this location. And so they did find it to be consistent with the master plan based on that. And so they are recommending approval, rezoning that to C3 general commercial.
Thank you. Trustee Deming.
A lot of discussion at planning because this is next to the Cartwright dealership to the west. It backs up 94, and there's a commercial developer that is the one that's interested in doing this, and it would be a great site for that. So there was a lot of discussion on that.
Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I support this. I support this zoning change for exactly the reasons that Trustee Demink talked about, and that is when the master plan originally designated this as multi-use or the RM3. That was pre-Cartwright and some of the other things that have gone up there. This space is really perfectly suited for some of the talked about and rumored developments, including Camping World and some of the others. So this, I think, enhances the township sort of development and potential for revenue generation without increasing the infrastructure that you would see if you had a massive apartment complex go in that spot, which is kind of precariously positioned. So this zoning change is consistent with not only the master plan, but just in terms of what has gone up in the development immediately around this parcel. So this is a move in the right direction. We get a massive enhancement of potential revenue without strain on infrastructure, traffic, and so forth that would be consistent with the approved and current zoning. So this is a good move on the planning department, and I'm glad that it's here.
Any comments from the public? No comments from the public. I'll bring it back to the board. I have a motion by Trustee Demink, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 9E as stated. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10, addendums if necessary. There are no addendums. Item 11, public comments. If you please, if you would, when you step to the podium to speak, please state your name for the record. And your 5-minute time limit will begin when you begin speaking.
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. Good evening, board members and Chesterfield Township residents. My name is John Speaka, and I reside on Connor Drive. Mr. Supervisor, your continued use of the word balanced in a board meeting or at a public speaking event in reference to Chesterfield's 22 budget is an outright lie. There is nothing balanced in the 22 budget. It's just the opposite. Chesterfield Township is negative $3.5 million in the red. This is called a budget deficit in county. Your fuzzy math doesn't work with me or the Chesterfield residents. A budget deficit occurs when expenses exceed revenues. The first principle or rule that I firmly believe in is embracing people who stand for the truth. The truth comes first and foremost. It is not, if you're not an honest person, you can't be trusted. And if you can't be trusted, you can't represent people or make policies that affect residents' everyday lives. There is nothing conservative about being a liar. I ask you again, Mr. Supervisor, to refrain from using the word budget and balance for Chesterfield. Your words matter. Mr. Supervisor, I asked you weeks ago about the Plant Moran water and sewer study. The residents paid $10,700 for the study. Why hasn't the study been posted online, and why do you continuously dodge this question? What's taking so long to post online? What useful information came out of the study, and why hasn't the public been updated on what was said in the study? Why haven't you shared the report with residents? I've asked you weeks ago about 385-inch 4K TVs that were purchased. What is the purpose of the expenditures for these TVs? Whose offices and walls are these TVs on? After I mentioned the 3 TVs, I was told that an additional 8 TVs were returned to the store. So why would we buy 11 TVs and why were 8 returned? Mr. Supervisor, how did the new televisions and soundproof offices serve the residents? On the 12/21/21 bill run, there were monitor TV wall mount brackets charged to the water and sewer fund in the amount of $284.94 and another charge for $94.99. I find this is an inappropriate charge to the water and sewer fund. This is a blatant disrespect for hard-earned money. The water and sewer fund is for water and sewer. Clerk Barry, January was a tough month. At the December meeting, I asked if we could start with baby steps and coming into the office like an hour a day. So my understanding is that for the month of January, you were in the office maybe a total of an hour and a half. The average Chesterfield resident works 160 hours a month. 160 hours a month compared to less than 2 hours that you worked for the whole month at a rate of almost $10,000 that we paid you for the month. I think that's ridiculous and unethical. And you were the co-sponsor of the ethics policy. Explain to me, I checked out your website, explain to me, you talked about how you saved Chesterfield Township $3 million. Could you please provide me proof on where the $3 million savings that you provided Chesterfield came from? On the bill run, there was a new truck that came in that was approved last year. Just curious, on the new truck that Mike's driving, are we going to have any logos on that truck signifying that it's a Chesterfield Township vehicle? And in regards to the cleaning company, for the last 6 months in the men's restroom in the corner of the hallway here by Leisure Services, I've just been waiting how long it's going to take for that soap dispenser to get filled and to work. As of tonight, that's still not working. If we could get that filled, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Any further comments from the public? I'll bring it back up to the board. Closing comments, Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. A couple quick ones. I'll just shortly enjoy Super Bowl Sunday and also Monday's Valentine's Day. I know it's already been mentioned. Stay warm, be kind to one another. Take care.
Trustee Joseph.
Would you mind going to another trustee?
Sure.
I just had to pull something up, and I'm just not ready.
Trustee Domingue.
Thank everybody from the different organizations for the block grant money, and like I say, it'll be consideration by the board and up to the supervisor. And I'm trying to think. That's all I have for tonight.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments made by Trustee Anderson and by Trustee Domingue, and I echo those.
Mr. Elliott.
I'll echo the previous comments, and hopefully we'll have a quick night at it here.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a couple of more words with regards to elections in Chesterfield. One of the things that I've been very active in doing over the last month has been taking a look at our additional security protocols that our election equipment goes through. I've had several meetings with our election equipment vendor, ES&S, which is the same vendor that all of the clerks in Macomb County use. That it was a vendor that was selected by the county clerk at the time and was very heavily supported by most local clerks as being what we felt to be the most user-friendly, reliable, and best value system at the time it was evaluated. A lot of people have had concerns, and I'm not speaking in Chesterfield specifically, but again, as I referenced earlier, there's been many concerns about across the country and here in Michigan regarding public trust and confidence in our electoral system, and particularly concerns about the equipment that we use. That equipment is tested before every election. That is open to the public. The public may view that. What I plan to put onto our website, you'll see it within the next week, are the security protocols that are recommended and that we follow by the Election Assistance Commission, as well as the specific security protocols from our vendors and what they go through when certifying the security on our election equipment. Our election equipment and the transmission mechanisms that it holds meet the same level of security that the U.S. Air Force uses with F-16 deployments, that the Pentagon uses with a variety of other very, very highest level security security-sensitive issues with regards to military and other types of high-level security, banking systems, and so forth. This equipment, our vendor uses that same type of protocols when testing and developing our election tabulation equipment. I plan to make all of those resources available online for the public to review, as well as some additional information regarding election audits, the types of audits that there are. That's something else that our office gets frequently are questions about election audits. Our elections are audited every election. It is state law that they are done that way. There's actually 3 different types of audits that the state does and that we do. We actually do additional audits here in Chesterfield. That's my choice as clerk. We audit especially every election cycle, even more so than the Secretary of State or the county requires. And we are also going to make that information available online to the public for your review. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph?
Thank you. I just appreciate that. I just needed a minute to check an email that I received explaining a position. But if I could start with the first, the only speaker tonight, I'll let Clerk Berry and Mr. Supervisor, I would ask just as a, I don't think you should address these things. They're repetitive and they are inflammatory and they're not productive in any way, but you handle it however you like. I would simply say that the position that the resident took, Mr. Speaker took, I happen to fall more towards the idea that if you spend more than you take in, that is a deficit. There are other opinions that say if you have, in essence, amassed some level of savings from previous years that you put into the general fund, and then you simply utilize those funds to support one-time purchases or outliers, say capital improvements, that really you're not running a deficit. You're simply using savings to compensate for these one-time only capital expenditures. You can have differing opinions on whether or not that is deficit spending and so forth, and I happen to look at that as more of a deficit than I do a budget, neutral position. But it's a differing of opinions is not, in my opinion, appropriate to refer to somebody as a liar. And so when you keep coming back and you call the individual a liar, we get no productive dialogue. You just get what we've had, and you're too raw wet of a guy to keep coming forward and charging these you lied and the fuzzy math and all that, because the guy that you're going at would sit down with you at any point and show you exactly why and how he makes the decisions that he makes. You're a resource, in my opinion, to this township, and you're running yourself right out of real opportunities to have meaningful dialogue with the you lie, you fuzzy math, and all of that. And I wish you would, again, look at the potential for being a different interpretation as opposed to an adversarial, disingenuous liar. And that's again, I also on the TVs, I've been in a room with planning, zoning, and with Supervisor Kersten in the Public Safety Department. I don't know if those are 85-inch monitors that you have in the conference room in the public safety buildings, but I know that when we are all around a board table and we're talking about a deployment of resources, where do you concentrate officers? Where do you concentrate MedStar? Where do you anticipate their problems being? You can go to Google Map overview and from your mouse at one end of the conference table project and draw attention to. They're valuable instruments. I don't think that anybody is, and I'll check into it, but I don't think people are sitting around with popcorn watching, binge watching the Golden Girls or, Netflixing in the township. So when we talk about it being like a luxury item that is for, pleasure, it's not helpful. That's not what's done. And if I ever walked into a meeting in DPW or any other board member walked in and, the entire staff were sitting around watching, Game of Thrones on an 85-inch monitor, I'm going to be upset too. It's not happening, but again, you can get your answers answered much easier if you're not starting the conversation with liar. The criticism of Clerk Berry, I don't know. I can't defend that. I don't know what her hourly we've went round and round with that, and it's not any board member's position. I think it's something she can address if she wants to. And then the only other thing I wanted to point out, you have done a great job of going through the bill run and pointing out areas that you have concerns. And sometimes I feel like you don't get your questions answered. And if you would like, if you shoot me a text or an email before the meeting and say, listen, this is a bill run area, I will leg it down and I will get as best an answer as I can. I do know that the issues that you pointed out tonight with Aztec, I've asked about additional, and it has been a priority in the township to keep the building open and accessible as possible to residents, and there are enhanced cleaning obligations, you know, in a pandemic. Obviously, the sanitizing that needs to happen in order to keep residents and people that come in to transact business here safe would naturally fit, and I understand that some of that is the result of trying to make sure that we have as safe an environment for the residents, and I think that's money well spent. But I'd be happy to check it out anytime that you have a bill run question. The other comments that I had tonight, I wanted to first say thank you to Trustee Vosberg for bringing the young lady who came to speak with us, Brianna Steffen. What an amazing kid, and I knew that you knew her from way back because it seemed like you were following her for some time, and what a great advocate for others with this condition, and writing the book in terms of being able to support other kids in that situation was really quite compelling. So the next item that I wanted to touch on was Clerk Berry's report in the beginning of our meeting, and talking about the correspondence that she received regarding what appears to be an initiative that will go forward from the cannabis industry. It is unfortunately something that I have been fearful of since we decided to opt out over 2 years ago. And I don't know if other board members have had a chance to look at the anticipated ask, but it's really quite scary to me in terms of whether or not our residents would approve a ballot initiative that calls for cannabis licensing in almost every zoning district that we have, whether that be grows, dispensaries, and the provisioning centers. The ability to work cooperatively with the cannabis industry when a ballot initiative is approved reduces dramatically. And right now, anybody who has met with individuals from this industry, there are some really top-notch, accomplished business people in this environment. These are the days of interacting with people selling bags of weed out of their trunk are long gone. These are accomplished businessmen who, and business persons, I should say, from really all walks of the business community. In fact, two of the most impressive businesses have nothing to do with cannabis prior to, they're successful business people in other walks of life. If we find ourselves trying to manage cannabis in our community post-ballot initiative, I think we will really be disappointed in ourselves for not taking a deeper look at how we could potentially control, license, and regulate cannabis in Chesterfield. What we know from industry insiders right now is cannabis is in our neighborhoods. There are grows that are taking place in residential areas. There is a product that is being distributed that are full of toxins and pesticides and material that has never seen a lab or any kind of licensing provision whatsoever. I am not an advocate for cannabis dispensaries on every street corner. I have no business holdings in the cannabis industry. In fact, I've spent my whole life working in helping drug addicted youth and families overcome it. So it's not anything that I take lightly or I'm unfamiliar with, but I look at the opportunity to partner with accomplished, appropriate cannabis experts, and I see a place to avoid the problems that we have now. One of the proposals and one of the ideas that I intend to talk more in depth with our attorney is the idea of, if the township were to enter into some degree of licensed cannabis and approve some licenses in certain areas, what would the projected revenue, one, look like, and where would it go? And could we predetermine where revenue goes? Specifically, could we allocate all cannabis-related revenue to our seniors, to our parks and rec, to veterans projects, or to library development and some of the collaborations that we've talked about with the library? Not simply just saying cannabis revenue goes into the general fund and then from there who knows where it's spent, but give residents an opportunity to see any benefits that come from cannabis revenue being directed to specific entities that are typically underfunded. I really do see there's an opportunity. I will continue to work collaboratively with board members, and I do anticipate, and I hopefully I can beat the ballot initiative to this board, and at least I can sleep comfortably knowing that my attempt was to drive out illegal cannabis and put us in a place where we could control and regulate and see what products are in our community by way of appropriate licensing and monitoring. So as it relates to the clerk's report, I appreciate you sharing that and emphasizing that correspondence, because it's very, very powerful and it's very important, and the window of action is closing, and I'm really, really worried about that. So again, I'll continue to work to try to bring something forward that maybe we can all coalesce around. But I'd like to try to bring something to the board before that ballot initiative shows up and the parties that are interested in coming here just decide to stop working with us the way that they have for several years now. The last thing that I wanted to say as it relates to any board reports is the treasurer's report. Cannot express strongly enough the disappointment regarding this issue. The agenda item that was before us back in January had a number of questions that centered around not a obligation or a shall appoint versus may appoint Q&A on the deputy treasurer. I think there was a very clear and direct legal opinion provided not only from the bench that night, but also in subsequent meetings with Mr. Siebert and his entire team, and that is that the deputy treasurer is the appointment prerogative of the treasurer. That was never in dispute, and that was always seen as a right that was afforded the treasurer statutorily. What was objected to was the attempt to confine or expand the deputy treasurer's role into what would have amounted to a potentially six-figure salary, and then I get statutorily the right to appoint that. You don't. And you were told that emphatically the night of the presentation. And instead of working collaboratively, we got, exactly 4 weeks later, a packet of information that was, it seems to be copies of documents from the Macomb Township, Michigan Townships Association, really data that answers a tremendous amount of questions that were never asked. Citing what looks to be a copy that was generated on a typewriter from 1991, a 31-year-old document addressing the role of the clerk when a township treasurer submits to the bank conflicting signatures, is not helpful, and it's a waste of time. It's your time, but it's a waste of time. And what simply could have happened is when you hire a deputy clerk, a deputy treasurer, you send an email to the board. That's an opinion, and I have board comments, and I'm sorry it bothers you, but you were on vacation for a month when we had to deal with this circus, Trustee Vosberg, and it was a circus.
Supervisor, this is disrespectful.
That's an opinion, but
One of our rules is we do not speak disrespectfully.
you don't have the floor. You're out of order, and I'm going to continue. I will try to be more respectful as you define it, but I want you to know it was not very respectful to shut the entire board out of a process involving a deputy treasurer. And I asked for that at the meeting that you were not present, and the hope was that we would spend the month trying to collaborate around a problem. And instead, what we got is more of the same, a unilateral position from somebody who is really ill-informed, and it is destructive. And what's going on with our employees is also destructive, and it needs to stop. And I sent to the board a remedy, and the remedy is simply that, statutorily confirmed by the attorney and the HR and deputy supervisor director in the correspondence I received back, is that the supervisor is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the township, the entire township, and all the employees within the township. And I would make an appeal to the supervisor to take control of this situation by simply commandeering the supervision of these poor employees who deserve to be working in an environment that is not hostile and is respectful. It costs us nothing to be respectful, and concerns about my respect level should be extended to the employees that do the heavy lifting around here, Trustee Vosberg. So that is something that needs to happen, and I didn't appreciate finding out the day of, after a month of possible deliberations, that somehow it was going to be addressed, and we'll find out who the deputy treasurer is when the treasurer decides to tell us. And telling us in a packet of obsolete and irrelevant information wasn't helpful. It's resented. And I'm sorry if you find that distasteful, but that is fact. So the last thing I want to say is I want to thank the organizations that came in and presented to us tonight seeking Cdbg monies. And I know that we have some tough decisions in terms of how to dispense that revenue because there are so many worthwhile organizations, and we saw 4 of them tonight, but there are many more. And I'm very, very grateful to be in a community with that level of caregivers and people who are very, very committed to the most broken and vulnerable among us. So very, very happy for those individuals that came forward tonight. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Trustee Joseph. Just a quick comment and a reply to the concerned employees that you've mentioned in your statement. Those are the same employees that are funneling information out the back door that Mr. Speaker relays to the board and then attacks me as dishonest, a liar, and truth. And when those low-level employees who hold no management position think that they should run this place. And that is a problem which we deal with on a daily basis here. So just that's a piece that I'd like to continue managing inside, and I will address it as we move forward. I'm going to take your advice, though. I'm not going to reply to the individual. I don't even want to call his name anymore because I did meet with him. I offered him that opportunity. We sat in my office for over 2 hours, and this is what I get. It's unbelievable. And I literally have to chuckle about it because he speaks on information that is funneled out the back door by disgruntled employees. I know where they are, I know who they are, and why they do it is just to cause this problem right here. And it's sad. It really, again, it's the things that he speaks to acts as though he's management, and he knows how to run a DPW and a water department, and speaks to budgets. If you got a problem with our budget, call the Attorney General. Please, I'm open to that scrutiny. If it wasn't the past supervisor, it's now me. You're just restating the same statements. Just unbelievable. I've never treated you that way. I gave you respect, and this is what I get back in return. And I didn't want to go down this road at all. We had a great meeting tonight. We did exactly what we were supposed to do. My notes were, this is a compassionate evening. We took the public's money, we had groups come in here, and we plan on giving them that opportunity to work for the residents and serve the needy here. That's what we are supposed to be doing, serving everybody across the board, no matter who they are, no matter what their agenda is. Care House. Dave, you know what Care House is. What those people see and witness, I don't even want to discuss publicly. That woman that spoke eloquently, I don't even want to know what nightmares she has. Turning Point, saw that for 33 years. The numbers that get reported to them, I'd say double them. Wigs for Kids, Crest. That's what matters here. Not TVs on a wall. That's ridiculous. That's childish. Yes, Dave, they are technology. That's how we track our vehicles. That's how we manage and update our modern fleet. And we'll continue to do so. The cleaning, again, 33 years here. I don't even know. I don't even know why I'm addressing it, because it's irrelevant. It really is. It's so childish and irrelevant. We have a beautiful building that just came through COVID, and it's spotless, and it's maintained. The beautiful parking lot out front, maintained. We've got other issues to worry about. We've got a lot of work to do here in the township. There's a lot of things that we are behind on that cost money, and one of the pieces I'm going to send out to you in the coming weeks is, and I heard it before, it was presented to you guys before, but I think we're going to package it in a different way. The township owns a little over 550 acres throughout the township in various states, and I think that's important to understand, because there's a lot of resources that we spend as a community that those properties need to be managed, kept, and figure out what we're going to do. And a lot of them, these parcels just there's woods, and we've got to figure out what Parks and Rec or a path or how we add them into our service to our residents. So I'll send this out to you guys, to the board, just so you can take a look at it. Hopefully you get a better understanding of where we're at on it. With that being said, I did exactly what I wasn't going to do. I had a great meeting with Mr. Santo this week from the Macomb County Department of Roads. The topic of discussion was Public Act 51 and the problems that they are seeing at the county level and how it relates to Chesterfield Township. He was very grateful for what the board did for 23 Mile Road. The Sugar Bush, a recapping program that was pulled off because of the weather got cold. It is on their list. They're coming back in the spring. They will address that. But the roads, subdivisions, sidewalks, all of those discussions that I had with him, they're problematic. There just isn't enough money to go around, and even they're struggling. But I'll continue to keep that conversation open, and Trustee Vosberg, we may reconstitute that Roads and Street group to at least let him know. To be honest with you, followed the Macomb Township and Washington and Shelby, they did take general fund money to fund projects. And unfortunately, that's probably the path we're gonna have to go down in the future. Where the money comes from, I don't know yet, but that's something that we'll look at in the budget. Again, but I'll keep you informed, keep you up to date on that. The building, as you know, there are several issues with this building. We've been working with an architect, and we have a plan, we have a footprint, and it's modernization. And just as you'll get an email tomorrow, our boiler system here is pretty much on its last legs. And it's 33 years old. It's hard to get parts for. It right now demands constant service. And again, this isn't anything new. You were confronted with this in the past, as I recall, but we're really getting to the point where something needs to be done about it. So we'll get that information to you right away. That being said, there are no closed sessions scheduled for tonight. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Trustee Domingue.
Second.
Clerk Barry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:50.